Very good morning to you. Welcome to SABC's newsroom. Well, the African National Congress Youth League is headed for elections. The provinces have already started naming their preferred presidential candidates. Nominations are not yet open, but the names of Treasurer General Reggie Nkabinde, KZN Secretary Daluxolo Sabelo, NYDA chairperson Sifiso, Mtsweni, as well as ANC Youth League NEC member Ndumiso Mokako have already been put forward by provinces and regions keen to have their choice of candidates to succeed Mr. Collen Maine. Meanwhile, ANC Youth League Deputy Secretary General Thandi Moroka says that Collen Maine must resign with immediate effect. To talk about the renewal of the ANC Youth League, we are now joined by ANC Youth League NEC member Ndumiso Mokako. A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Essentially, what is your initial reaction there to the call for the resignation of the current ANC Youth League president, Mr. Collen Maine?
I don't think a call for the resignation of anyone in the current National Executive Committee of the ANC Youth League is going to help the African National Congress Youth League. The African National Congress Youth League will be helped by an early national conference because the problems of the ANC Youth League are above any individual in that NEC. We must not pretend as if any one of us was to cease to exist today, the problems of the ANC Youth League will be resolved. We need to go to a national conference and take the Youth League back to its rightful owners, the young people of South Africa.
Was Collen Maine imposed on the league by the ANC headquarters?
When we went to the previous national conference of the ANC Youth League in 2015, there were many issues that happened before that conference. You will recall that there were even legal challenges which were put forward against the then national task team, or the team which was tasked with convening the national conference. So when people lobby, there are many things that take place. Others do have a strong view, which is really not far from the truth, that there are all people who played a role in who gets elected in the previous conference. And that is what we must make sure that we avoid in this upcoming conference.
Definitely. Well, it's also something that's been making headlines this morning, and that's, the resignation, or the call for the resignation of Premier Supra Mahumapelo. What is your views on that?
My view is that anyone who is accused of corruption must allow the ANC, must go to court, face his charges, and while he is doing that, he must not continue with the work he is doing for the African National Congress or the government, because he drags the name of the ANC with him as and when he goes to court.
Are you then in support of the resignation of the Premier of the Northwest?
I am saying, with the evidence that stands in front of us, the people of Northwest are justifiable to be angry. All the corruption allegations that are leveled against the provincial government in the Northwest, that gives the people of Northwest a legitimate right to be angry and protest in the manner in which they are protesting. They must just not burn public property.
Now, you mentioned, the renewal as well as the reputation of the ANC. In you being an ANC Youth League NEC member, are you confident that going forward, the ANC Youth League can rebuild the notion that it has, as well as its reputation going forward, and be that once powerful voice for the youth that it once had?
It is, I am indeed very optimistic that the Youth League will rise once again, but there are certain things which we must get correct, because the process of renewal is not an automatic process, but there ought to be conscious actions that are done deliberately to renew an organization. One of them for the ANC Youth League is to run legitimate processes, to have internal processes that enjoy credence with all its members. The second leads to be a voice of the voiceless youth of South Africa who are found smoking drugs in the township, the voiceless youth of South Africa who are exploited by labor brokers, the voiceless youth of South Africa who are frustrated by racism in corporate South Africa. That is the only way in which the Youth League can reclaim its legitimacy in public and within society.
Now, the ANC Youth League used to be, very, very vocal with regards to issues that, they held close to them. Recently, Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela was buried, and the ANC Youth League wasn't necessarily given the opportunity to pay their tribute. Why was the ANC Youth League not bothered to be able to give them that opportunity? It seems as though, things just went on as normal.
That's a very regrettable decision from the African National Congress and the people who were involved in setting up the program in the president's office, because you'll recall that was an official state funeral. Because Mama Winnie has always been a friend and a darling of young people. He related with the youth of 1976. He related with the generation of the 80s, which was called the Young Lions. He related recently with the Fees Must Fall youth activists. So there's no way in which you can separate Mama Winnie from the young people of South Africa. And I think it was serious oversight from both the ANC and those in government. And we also have to take responsibility as the African National Congress Youth League, because we did not play our part fully in celebrating the life of Mama Winnie, which could have led to this denial of an opportunity to speak about our hero on her funeral.
What do you make of statements that have been said that the former leaders of the ANC Youth League, that many of which now are part of the EFF, seem to be setting the agenda for the ANC? For example, the removal of President Jacob Zuma, as well as land grabs, or the no motion of confidence that has been posed against Athol Trollip.
I think you would understand that the ANC went to its 54th National Conference in Nazareth in one of its weakest states. Those who are very conversant with the history of the ANC will tell you that the last time the ANC was this weak was in the late 60s, in the early 60s, after they had incarcerated many of its leaders. So you would understand that when an organization that came out of the 54th National Conference with a program of organizational renewal to reclaim our moral authority in society. So at some of the things we will lag behind, in some we will regain ourselves and start setting the agenda. But as things stand, we are regaining our moral authority in society. The mood is very jovial. South Africans are happy with President Cyril Ramaphosa and the collective he leads with. So we are very optimistic that by the time we go to the general elections, the ANC will be a credible leader of society, which would have earned its leadership of society through always been with the toiling people of South Africa.
Definitely. Speaking of leadership, what distinguishes the founding fathers of the ANC Youth League from some of the leaders that we're seeing now in the ANC Youth League?
I think we must first accept that times are different. That is the first appreciation we must make. Secondly, and say that we don't want to be like them, but we want to emulate them. What are the important things that we must do? Some of the things which the ANC Youth League ought to do now is to, at all times, elect leaders that enjoy the support of all young people in society. Secondly, what we must do is to elect leaders that celebrate, or leaders that hold the issue of education very high. You'll know that the first president of the African National Congress Youth League, Comrade Anton Lembede, had a master's degree at age 33. So we cannot continue with ignoring the cries of young people and being an inward-looking organization. I think that's the major difference between us and them. We must elect leaders with high revolutionary morality, because that is also important. People who are able to distinguish between wrong and right and are not afraid to speak against wrong.
Now, there have also been reports and rumours that you'll be throwing your name into the hat for ANC Youth League President. Can you confirm this? And what are your intentions, if so true?
Look, in the Youth League, you don't go around saying, I'm going to throw my name. It is branches that have the power to elect leaders of the ANC Youth League. But if branches of the ANC Youth League would make a call that I stand for any position in the upcoming national conference, I surely will. Given a chance, my only struggle will be to take the Youth League to its rightful owners, the young people of South Africa, derive mandate from them, and ensure that we continue with the struggle for economic freedom.
Now, you've mentioned a lot about the youth, as well as creating hope for them, chances and opportunity. How going forward are you wanting to help change or develop this through your work with the NYDA?
Sadly, I'm out of the NYDA. I recently left the NYDA. But as to what work needs to be done, the reality of the matter is that in South Africa we have about 3.3 young South Africans, 3.3 million young South Africans who are out of work and out of training. The state ought to find means of bringing those young people either to employment or training. We have a large number of young people who are consuming drugs in the townships. We ought to find ways of intervening in those circumstances. We have a large number of young people who are victims of HIV and AIDS. The state ought to create a conducive environment for young people not to be victims of these social ills. So it must be a collaboration of all stakeholders in society, in particular the state and the private sector and civil society. No one has got monopoly of answers to the problems confronting the youth of South Africa, but there must be collaboration from different stakeholders in order to resolve this problem.
Let's talk about current affairs, land expropriation without compensation. Of course, your views on that. And, do you think the economy, it's something that the economy can handle right now? And more so importantly, do you think that it's something that the youth can benefit from right now?
Land expropriation without compensation is a resolution of the African National Congress Youth League taken its 24th National Conference in Kalaka. I fully support it, and I think that it will assist with economic growth, because there are many people today who do not have access to land to do business or for economic opportunities, and the people who are owning that land are not using it for anything, and some of them at West are in foreign countries and have only seen that land on Google Maps. So that land must be given to South Africans. South Africans must be allowed to use that land for food security and agricultural purposes.
All right, and also just, discussing the ANC Youth League and its way forward. At what point in time, its voice was definitely something that, everybody would listen to when you heard the president of the ANC Youth League speak. In going forward, in your contribution, what do you think needs to change for that voice to be, heard or have the power that it used to once have?
The only thing that can change or that borrows any organization life is to be relevant. And you do not derive legitimacy or relevance in some boardroom. You must have a special connection with your constituency, in this case, which is young people. So we must make sure that for the Youth League to remain relevant, it must derive its mandate from the young people of South Africa and not elsewhere.
Are you then saying that the current ANC Youth League president is not relevant to its youth?
It's not about the president. The president is just an individual.
He's the leader. We're talking as a collective.
We have a collective leadership. That collective leadership, as we admitted in our previous National Executive Committee, that we have not lived up to the expectations of the young people of South Africa. And in the main, you only live up to their expectations if you respond to the problems they are confronted. If you respond to the issue that some of them are exploited by labor brokers. If you respond to the issue that some of them still sleep in libraries and do not have the accommodation at universities. Those are the issues that will make us relevant and nothing else. You can't buy legitimacy, unfortunately.
Yeah, but your response is from the leader.
Okay.
The response is from leadership, though.
No, true. That response must come from leadership and as a collective. Because if we were to, the danger of trying to individualize the problems of the African National Congress Youth League will be that if by some odd thing someone dies today, the problems of the Youth League will not go away. They will still be there. So in reality, for us to resolve the problems of the Youth League, we must go to any national conference, allow the owners of the organization, which are its members with all young people of South Africa, to decide the future for their organization.
Thank you very much for joining us in
Thank you
studio.
very much for hosting me.
It was ANC Youth League NEC member Ndumiso Mokako speaking to us here on SABC News.